Hello, everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm your host, Fate Crowder, and with me today I have Garrett Mayer, one of the four hosts of the DDV show, according to Danny Duchamp. Welcome, Garrett. How does it feel to be on?
What is up, Fate Crowder? I'm glad to be back on your channel. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. There were a lot of people who wondered why I was on the DDV show, and one of the reasons was that I wanted to have philosophical conversations of the sort that are now happening on his platform, on your platform, on the other platforms. I've since found 4 different Objectivist Discord servers, so
Yeah.
I was looking for that outlet in my life, and I've been able to find it. So I'm happy about that. I feel good.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad
Mm-hmm.
glad you found that. There's a lot of good servers out there, and I'm also part of all of them. I haven't got banned from the Charles 2 server yet, which is exciting.
Yeah, I guess I had not dipped my toe in the water yet because once I got in, then I found out about all of the other ones. So it was just that first introduction. And, you know, Euron's not publicizing this stuff on his own platform, so it took a long time to
Yeah.
find it.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. There's a lot of underground objectivist content, a lot of underground sort of channels, I guess. There's like objectivism's kind of characterized by a bunch of like 60 subscriber channels that are undeveloped and have like 2 videos.
Yeah, but now I have almost too much content to watch. Because even over the weekend, there were 10 hours or something worth of content that came out on all
Oh
different
yeah,
channels.
wow.
So it's
Yeah, because Diego releases his like 5-hour videos every Saturday, and then I go
Diego
daily, and
should.
then I think there's so many people out there now, it's crazy. So what all did you want to talk about? Because you had a whole list of things I saw.
Yeah. So I want to provide some more fluff for my road into objectivism, and then relay that into the daily vlogs that you're doing, because I think there's a lot of value there that hasn't been brought up. So as I mentioned on the DVV show, you know, I was watching Dave Rubin, and from him heard about Yaron Brook, watched Yaron for 2 years, was patron for Charles too, and then the DDV show has introduced me to lots of other people. Um, but even before that, I've been thinking about ideas broadly, and even some of the classes I took in college, looking back, are kind of indicative that I wanted to understand how people think, how they interact. So I am a scientist by training, but at college I had to fulfill certain core requirements, and then I had to take classes outside of the typical science curriculum. And so 3 of the classes I took was a psychology class, a philosophy class, and also a social sciences class. And so each of those they were all low-level classes, but they were introductions into, you know, for psychology, here is how people think, our best knowledge about like the brain and the pathways that it goes through. Philosophy was just, here are different types of ethics structures, and unfortunately Ayn Rand was not included in that
She
course,
never
which
is. It's terrible.
you know. And then the social sciences, yeah, I knew going in that as a scientist I was going to joke by the use of the word science there, because it's not going to be as precise as I would expect a lot of other scientific fields to be. But you know, each of them is looking at the human experience in a slightly different way, seeing how one person thinks on a physical level, how they organize stuff in their brain, and then how they then interact with other people in the real world. And so that's probably where my strong interest in ideas and topics like goes back to.
Yeah, for sure. So what science are you studying right now?
I am a chemist by training.
I'm
So,
not a big chemistry guy. I liked it in somewhat in high school, but I loved physics. I couldn't stand biology, and chemistry was like but physics, that was my shit because I love math.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I've heard a joke that biology is really chemistry, chemistry is really physics, physics is really math, and math is really hard. So I don't know where actuarial fits on there, but you're probably way at the math end.
oh yeah, that's I mean actuarial science is basically just finance and interest rates and insurance and all that sort of stuff. Like the class that I'm in right now, we're
Mm-hmm.
just basically just doing a bunch of shit with interest rates and like doing like a timeline of payments and seeing like how long it's going to take to pay off a loan and like all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot of math, a lot of money math though. That's mostly what it is.
So like 15 years down the line, when objectivists take political power, we'll be able to point to Garrett and say, see, he's already planned Medicare for all. Let's roll this out and let's got the numbers.
Oh God, I don't think I could plan a Medicare for all system because that tends to not work very well. But I can run the medical system though. I can sell some private insurance to people. So that I mean that'll actually be my job in the future. So I'm gonna be doing the job that a lot of people say should be the government's job, but I'm gonna be doing that.
Mm-hmm. How many classes have you taken outside of your specific major, and have any of them overlapped with the types of topics I mentioned earlier?
Uh, I mean, the only like non-business or non-math class that I've taken has been poetry, and I mean it was interesting, but not really much philosophically there because it was just a class on like how to write poetry and things like that. And it was basically the teacher basically had the philosophy of you learn by doing it, and we would just do like poetry assignments where we just write the poetry, and it was a lot better than my friend's poetry class where like the whole time they just write reviews of these super like social justice warrior type poems and like stuff about climate change and all that sort of stupid shit. But that yeah, it was the same number class, just a different teacher, and it's crazy how a teacher can just completely ruin a subject.
Yeah, it's a good teacher can really inspire students, and a bad teacher can unfortunately do the opposite. So perhaps we need to get more objective teachers in the schools.
Yeah.
Underground mentioned Ayn Rand and off topics and whatnot.
For sure.
Yeah. One of the few things I remember from the social science class I took was that one of the required readings was The Leviathan by Hobbes. And that I liked the way the book was laid out, because it was him grappling with trying to build a society like from the ground up, and like think about how people are going to interact, and then what laws need to be put in place in order for those interactions to happen. And then at least the first two parts of the book are that. The third part is then how do we add a religious element on so that I don't get persecuted for saying that the current monarch ruler just should not have power. So you can like disregard that. But if you're looking for more reading on top of your growing stack, Leviathan is maybe a low level thing that you could read.
Yeah, I think I have that book. I don't know. I don't know if I'm that interested in Hobbes because all that I really know about Hobbes is he has a really, really pessimistic worldview. He has a very pessimistic sense of life, and stuff like that just
Nasty,
seems
brutish, and
very, very uninspiring to me. Like I like to read more stuff that's. I guess I do want to read like classics and stuff that's like in the culture and important in the culture. And I think Leviathan probably does have some sway over a lot of people's thinking, but I don't know. Maybe later. I'll read The Fountainhead a couple more times before I get to the pessimistic stuff.
Yeah, so in thinking about the positive aspects that objectivism brings to one's life, I think the daily logs that you're doing are really great examples of daily integration, because you're living your life, but you encounter situations, and then might have like new situations you haven't encountered before, topics you've not considered, and then that is a platform for you to then do whatever talk about on the daily topic, how objectivism would apply to that situation or how it relates to other topics you've seen in the past. And so in that way, you are integrating on a daily basis, which I think would be something great for everybody to do, but most people don't. take the time or don't have the interest to do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's really, really helpful. I mean, primarily, I guess primarily a lot of the things I do are for mental clarity. Like, I keep a journal as well, where I also do a similar thing. But I guess, yeah, that's another really big aspect of it. Because when you have to do a video every single day, it's so hard to like come up with topics and because like there's like a list of good topics that objectivists talk about, like that Rand talked about. So I can like easily just go reiterate something that she said, but like you can't do that all the time. Like you have to start like once you're doing it every day. And I think I've made like 160, 170 videos last time I checked. I don't remember, but you have to like every single day you have to come up with something new, and you can't just like restate things from Rand. Like you have to sort of like apply it to your life and come up with new things and things like that. Like, I don't know, today my video is about like running and why I love running. I don't think Rand talked much about running. I'm not sure that she ran much, but
yeah, no, if you look back at some of your previous videos, it was clear based on the shirt that you're wearing that, 4 or 5 of them were recorded in one setting and then spread across multiple days. But, you early on, and then I think in yesterday's video as well, you reiterated the purpose for your channel as like combating nihilism. Is that still how you view your channel? Do you think your goals for your channel have changed over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things that like, I guess fundamentally, my main goal with my channel at the beginning was just to improve my own speaking, but then I kind of thought, like, what sort of topics do I like to talk about? What sort of topics do I, like, want people to hear from me? What do I want other people to get out of this channel? What values am I providing people? And I think one of the biggest things when going back in a lot of my videos, I noticed that I talked about purpose a lot. I talked about happiness a lot. I talked about meaning a lot. And I guess I'm kind of deciding to make that more of a focus as how to, like, basically have meaning in life, but also like not have mysticism. So basically combating both nihilism and mysticism, because that's basically been what the journey of my life has been. Because going through life, I grew up religious, and then I basically realized religion was bad, and I like rejected that. And my initial thoughts or my initial movement was towards nihilism. That's where a lot of people who lose religion tend to go. So I basically held on to religion to avoid the nihilism. And then I basically found objectivism. Objectivism basically defeated both in
me. I wish people in general would think more about issues. It seems like a lot of people live on autopilot, not necessarily not exercising free will, but not always choosing to think about something. They just kind of like, oh, this is default how I did it, so I'm just going to keep doing it until it needs to change. But if you set up a pattern or a habit early on and you do it right the first time, then just keep propagating it, then you can keep going with it. Like the daily journal log, one of my New Year's resolutions, which I think you might share, was to just read 10 more pages a day. Yeah. And for the first couple of days, it's like, great, I can do this. And then there's like one day where I get home late or I'm busy and I can't get to it. Then I feel like I fall off the wagon, and then I need to get back on. And I guess I'm too ambitious that I have so many simultaneous New Year's resolutions that like maybe 10 of them was too much, and like three would have been a more mean, actually achievable.
Yeah.
But like doing some kind of daily log, and especially like writing it down into a journal, you're having to put the words onto paper, so you have to give them a bit more clarity. You think through the process while you're doing it, and then that's also an act of production, because as you showed in previous videos, you can hold up your journal and say, here's this page where that was the epiphany that I had, and look at myself 1 year ago. So it's, having a video log, it's similar, is that you're putting it out there, other people are seeing it. You have a couple hundred subscribers, so presumably they're getting value from the work that you're putting out there.
Yeah, and it's also like really awesome how people can, like, if I misstate something or do something wrong in one of my videos, or like say something that is inconsistent with objectivism or anything like that, like people come in immediately and will just correct me and say, I don't think you meant that, like, or I don't think you meant that you said that, or you misstated this, or you focused on the wrong thing here. And one person who really did that really well was Frog Machine in a lot of my videos. Like, he has a video on his channel where he just goes through, responds to one of my videos at like it playing, and then he's just pausing it, stopping it, like saying, no, you missed this. This is the essential here. Look at this. And I don't know. I've gotten so much value from Frog. And if anyone's watching this, definitely go check out his channel. Like, there's a lot of good stuff on there. But
yeah, some of his videos about emotions and the touching into the counseling type work that he does for a profession, those are clarifying. Like, I think, like, maybe given 20 years, I could probably like get it down to those crisp sentences. But if I don't like sit down and think about it, then I won't get there. But for him to just having worked there, he can say this is a nice way to wrap it up, bite-sized chunks. It's like I watch it and I'm like, oh, of course, that's so clear. And so I'm getting a lot of values out of Frog Machines.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing, I think, I'm trying to remember what specifically you said earlier, but you were talking about kind of having something, or like choosing to like direct your life towards something, or like focus on your life, kind of. And honestly, like, I think that I don't know if you still hold a lot of the things that you said about free will in the DDV show, but that's essentially like what the essence of free will is. I was listening to Rush the other day, and like, I don't listen to much rock music, but like my friends were all like, we were playing Rock Band, and one of my friends has a bunch of Rush songs on there, and I heard the song Free Will, and I was like, well, you're cutting out. Oh, sorry, never mind. I heard the song Free Will, and I was like, oh, I recognize this song. And then I listened to the lyrics, and I'm like, holy shit, this is actually really good. And I remember that Rush's drummer was an objectivist, and it's like, I think the line is, what's the line? Like, it's about like choosing to have free will. Like, that's essentially like the choice that, and it's like a really interesting conception of free will. Like, you have the ability to choose whether you have free will or not have free will. You can choose to be this sort of deterministic person who just drifts by in life, or you can choose to focus on your life, focus on where you want to direct yourself. And that's the essence of what free will is. Basically the choice between if you want to direct your life to certain values, or if you want to just let your life go and let it go wherever.
Yeah, well, I don't intend to talk about free will versus determinism on here. There will hopefully be a future DDV show appearance where I can articulate exactly what my thoughts are. In the one show that I was on, if you go back and watch it, you can't even tell me what my argument was. I didn't get to the point where I made my argument. So we were still defining terms, and I couldn't explain free will using terms that the rest of the panel would accept. So without having proper terms, then even discussing them further wouldn't make sense. So I'm in the middle of ITOE.
Yeah.
And
where are you at in that? I'm actually reading that right now.
About page 50.
Page 50. I'm in the essay. I'm in Peikoff's essay, like the analytic synthetic dichotomy. That's like page like 120 right now. So yeah. But
I'm looking at multiple different sources, both written and then some video lectures, and trying to get a complete picture for what free will is as defined by an objectivist, and what determinism is by an objectivist. And at this point, nothing I've seen has addressed the specific contention that I have. So I'll be looking, and at a point when I can appropriately explain it, then I intend to make a repeat appearance.
Yeah, the thing with free will is, like, nobody's going to give you some deductive proof of it. That's expecting that is sort of like holding free will rationalistically, and that's I guess that's a problem with a lot of like me early on too. Like, every time when somebody early on is like getting into objectivism, they tend to try to hold these concepts like very rationalistically, or try to hold them in like ways that they can like deductively prove. But the way that we discover free will. The way that objectivists discover free will is not through deduction. It's not through these like deductive arguments. We basically like introspect and observe free will in ourselves and sort of induce from there. That's kind of how we get to all of our axioms. And I know I fell to this a lot early on because I was listening to Peikoff's course Objectivism Through Induction, the first episode of it, and he was talking about causality and how do we prove causality. And then he basically went into this sort of argument where it was like, oh, but because you have identity that everything acts according to its nature, therefore causality. And then he was like, this is wrong. This is the way that a lot of people think about it, but this is wrong. You induce causality by looking at the world and seeing that things act according to a certain nature. You can't just know identity and then deduce it from there. You start looking at reality and basically you induce causality from there. And that's how you have to prove most principles to yourself, and free will especially. I think a lot of people, when I talk to a lot of determinists, they tend to like try to like deduce determinism or try to get me to like deduce free will. And when all I can do is point to the consciousness, point to your own mind. Yeah, I know you didn't want to get too much into free will, but I just wanted to sort of give a explanation of like how we arrive at axioms, which I think can be valuable.
Yeah, and in what I've seen so far, free will is not considered one of the three axioms. You could potentially nest it underneath consciousness. Is conscious as an axiom?
Yeah, it's like an axiomatic concept. It's something that you like. It's necessary for epistemology. It's necessary for it's like you have to basically agree with that before you start with epistemology, I guess.
Yeah, and my contention is not actually with free will. It's at the other end of the spectrum. I watched Existence University's video, Determinism is an Illusion, and I pointed out to him that at no point in the video did he define what he means by determinism. So, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole, since I would like to reach a point where I can coherently explain what I mean, and then at that point we can have meaningful conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Just keep introspecting. I mean, that's figure out what you mean. And I mean, I think when you can state something clearly, it's a lot easier to understand it. It's a lot easier to sort of argue it and come to like the correct conclusion. Because if you hold premises like sort of unclearly in your head, I guess it's hard to change it. But it's also it's hard to change them because of like things in reality.
Yeah, and this leads into another topic where Diego and Puya have both made recommendations for people who are studying objectivism to go off, silo themselves, study objectivism, learn to understand it, and then at that point, then come back out, and then you are able to interact and can easily point out where other people are going wrong, either in epistemology or just application. And I don't like this recommendation because it sounds like cultish behavior.
Yeah.
Like, go over there in the corner, study our sacred texts. Once you know the text and can regurgitate it and know all of the proper responses, then you can come back out, and then no matter what we expose you to, it's okay. You will be immunized against those ideas. And I'm going through that process right now. I don't consider myself to be fully integrated, but I'm learning the philosophy, but still living my life. So I'm constantly encountering people with different ideas, and the basics of the philosophy are not incredibly expansive. If they can fit inside of OPAR, then it's not some giant tombs where, as Jordan Peterson would say, you need to read all of Kant to understand the circumstances that go into it, and then you can't take any sentence individually. You need to understand everything in the full context. But like for objectivism, like I can pick up ITOE and look at a line and just be like, yes, there's clarity, precise words. There's a single idea contained here, and then I can just think about how that applies to other areas in my life. And similar to the daily logs that you're doing, if you are just encountering different situations in your life and then thinking about how those integrate back onto everything else, you if you are studying the philosophy and then going out and interacting with people, you are meeting new ideas, you're seeing different situations, and so these are new opportunities for you to think about how different aspects would work under the philosophy. And some people will give pushback. You'll encounter situations where someone might know a lot about one topic and you don't, and you can recognize that there's a place where there's a gap in your knowledge, and then you can go see what resources there are where it's been talked about previously and learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I very much disagree with a lot of the stuff that Diego and Puya say about like closing yourself off and basically just studying the philosophy. I think you need to you can't hold the premises rationalistically. You can't just say, I'm just going to accept these principles as dogma and accept them in this sort of, in the form of just like this coherent philosophy. You need to like make sure it corresponds to reality. You need to go out and talk to people, and you need to know how these ideas like relate to other ideas through firsthand experience, through firsthand discussion of these ideas. Like I couldn't understand how some of my religious friends think as well as I do now without actually discussing it with them through an objectivist lens. Like obviously I have my experience with religion, but that isn't as much as like my memory of that and reading of my journals. That's one thing that helps me understand how that philosophy is related to objectivism. But I didn't get to discuss with that person objectivism back in the day. Like if I discuss with a religious person objectivism, I can sort of see how they respond to the objectivist ideas, see what pushback they give. I can see how I can actually better understand the ideas of religion and better understand how it relates to objectivism and why people gain value out of this. Like the amount of value that I get from listening to other people talk about ideas, listening to people from other perspectives, it's immeasurable, because it kind of helps me like see where objectivism is at and kind of see how different positions look at these ideas. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the whole taking objectivism as dogma while you're still learning. Like I think while you're learning, that is the worst time to just take objectivism as a dogma, because then you're going to hold it rationalistically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the one situation where that type of behavior is appropriate is if you intend to enter into the arena and do a debate. There you want to make sure that you really know your material, because you'll be representing the philosophy in a public forum. Mm-hmm. And so that's when you really want to know your stuff. And so even if you've seen the video that went up with Diego having a conversation with Danny, he was couching it as a conversation and that these were all his own opinions. Even though, he's probably one of the better spoken objectivists that are out there making a lot of content. So it's great that he's getting these opportunities. And if you put me in that ring, like I wouldn't have been able to keep up with that first half of the conversation. So it's, if you are officially representing the philosophy in a public forum, then yes, you really need to know your stuff. But if you're having informal conversations with somebody else online, then in that case, I'm not fully integrated, but we're still having this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I might push back a little on that, because I think there's an extent to which, like, it's good to just jump into a debate and like understand, like, just do it and see how you're going to perform, so that you can know what you need to look into afterward, basically, and know what you need to like, you can't, like, nobody goes from someone who's never debated in their life and is just learning a philosophy to like a stellar debater overnight. And yeah, nobody can do that. You have to go and get in the ring and practice, and that's sort of what I'm doing. Like, even though I don't have as strong of a grasp of the philosophy as like Uran or like a Charles II or a Leonard Peikoff, but I still want to go and debate people, I guess, even though I don't. And I don't know. I want to be clear that I'm still a student in all these debates. I like to try to be clear about that, although I probably haven't as much in the past. But yeah, there's a lot of learning that I still have to do. But I still think it's good to get out there and sort of push on these ideas and fight a little bit, because there's always something more that you can learn. There's always something there's always going to be, I don't know, there might always be something that I'm a little unclear on, but I don't know. That might be rationalistic of me to say.
Yeah, well, even now you just identified that there are different types of skills that you can be learning from each interaction. In the Groyper debate, it was clear the other person had speaking skills and experience that you yourself did not. And so while you are not learning any new ideas from him, you were out there doing the dance with him, learning the types of moves that he was making and how he was counteracting some of the points that you were trying to make. And so, that's a separate type of skill beyond just the technical philosophical knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Are there any debate clubs at your school, or like a Toastmasters organization where you can go and practice speaking, practice debating?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I've looked into Toastmasters, but I don't have a car, and Toastmasters would be like on the other side of the city. But I don't know. There might be a debate club. I don't know. I go to like political clubs and like stuff like that where I can just talk about like politics with people. Like I have one friend who's like an absolute 100% centrist who used to be an objectivist, I guess. But so we get into some interesting discussions a lot. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good people that I've met and like had discussions with and stuff like that at school. So I don't know. I've learned quite a bit about debating, although I feel like I'd be rusty now. I don't know. I haven't debated anyone in a while.
Yeah, well, if you look at the Diego and Danny video conversation that went up, they were both incredibly cordial with each other. Yeah. And so that is a very different type of situation than where you're combative. And also one thing Yaron mentions frequently is that the talks that he's giving, the questions that he's giving, are not usually for the people that are there in the room, rather than for all of the people who will watch it later. And so, understanding the goals that you have, are you going to convince the other person you're talking with? Unlikely. But people in the audience can look at it, can think it over. That's where the impacts will be had.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that's really frustrating when you're debating somebody, because it's like, I gave you the perfect proof. I gave you everything I need to say for you to understand me. Why are you not getting this? And you're not understanding anything I'm saying. And it's like, nah, it's okay. It's okay. He's not gonna get it. This dude's dishonest and irrational. Talk to the audience. Talk for the audience. And
that's why defining terms was the first step I wanted to take, because if we can't even agree on what, for example, capitalism is, then you're not going to get anywhere talking economic policy.
Yeah, for sure.
Having that underlying foundation, or at least establishing where each person is, then you can build off of it. But if you're disagreeing on the philosophical level, then any discussions you have on top of that are on, you're not going to be able to make too much progress.
Yeah, for sure. And in that Groyper debate, going back to that, I guess he called me a neoliberal at one point in the debate, and I was like, holy shit, I should make him define his terms. But then he just kept talking. I guess I got distracted from that because, I don't know, he was good at going on long-winded rants, and so he would pack in pack in so much stuff at the beginning that I would want to respond to, and then he would just keep going, and then at the very end he'd say something that I wanted to respond to. I was like, I'll jump on that, and then I'll come back to the stuff at the beginning. And then the second I would pause and finish my point on that, he'd just come in with a whole nother diatribe. But
Yeah, my partner saw that there was the recent healthcare study that came out of Yale, and wanted me to read it and give my opinion, as a chemist who doesn't work in the healthcare field. And then I looked to just the very first sentence in the introduction. More than 78 million Americans do not have adequate health insurance, and millions more are at risk of losing coverage. And as soon as I saw the word adequate, I'm just like, okay, so that's subjective on some level? Like, who decides what's adequate? Like, how much more of this do I want to read? Like, so defining terms, like understanding where people are coming from, it's so important.
Oh yeah, for sure. And with that sort of thing, like, you can tell the perspective it's coming from the very first line. Like, the fact that they're focusing on like the amount of people that lack healthcare and not focusing on like, I don't know, other stuff like innovation or freedom or I don't know, whatever else they could be focusing on. But the fact that that's like the first sentence, then it's like, yeah, I think I know where this article's going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As someone who is a scientist, I look to see what other objectivists there are out there doing public stuff, and the only one who seems to have some kind of science mind that at least I've come across so far is Existence University, and he's got 15 videos or so on his YouTube account. I don't know of anyone at ARI that had a technical science background, but if there are people I've not heard about, leave the names down in the comments, and then I'll follow up on that.
I know David Harriman did something like he had the logical leap that was written with Peacock, but I don't know if he still is with ARI though, or I don't know if he ever was with ARI. I just know he has a book with Peacock where they talk about induction, and he's very critical of like quantum mechanics and stuff like that, which I don't know. I have a lot of thinking to do on that because.
Well, as one Garrett Mayer explained, quantum mechanics is not inconsistent with objectivist philosophy.
Oh yeah, I don't think. Well, it can't be inconsistent. Like the quantum phenomena cannot be inconsistent with objectivism because I believe objectivist metaphysics is true. Like I have induced everything about it, and I know that like everything exists, everything has a certain nature, and everything acts according to its nature. Now the question is, what is the nature of these like really small particles? Is that nature something where it, like may behave probabilistic? Maybe, I don't know. That's the thing. The issue is I don't think objectivism can say something. I don't think objectivism can like disprove that science. Like if it's shown that like atoms or things behave probabilistically at the smallest layer, and I mean I don't think that can be inconsistent with causality, because causality basically just states that everything behaves according to its nature. And now the issue is I'm not sure that probability inserts this sort of randomness into things where it sort of makes it so that it's not behaving causally anymore, where things aren't behaving according to a certain nature, like their nature is random. So that's where I struggle with that concept. Because if things are
agree.
If things are entirely random, if things don't have a certain like causal nature, I guess that completely goes against every single thing that I've observed and everything that I've induced, and that I can't believe that could be true, because like the beginning of science is like metaphysics, it's induction, it's like all these things that we think that things are causal, that things behave according to their nature, and the purpose of science is more to identify the nature of certain things. So
I wish a lot more of the objectivists would be willing to say just like I don't know or I don't understand, because if we have mathematical descriptions for how these things behave, is it possible for a particle to be in two places at once? No. Do we know exactly where it is at every point in time? Also no. So to just say like we don't have a proper understanding of the math at this point, like that's certainly a reasonable answer. And it doesn't, we can't create new philosophy or counteract anything else that we already know to be true. So
so I think there's a lot of problems with the way that people interpret quantum mechanics. I think like the layman's understanding of quantum mechanics is absolutely terrible, or like the way that some people describe it, like this the way that some people interpret it, like saying that things are in two places at once, or like a cat in a box is both dead and alive. Like that literally betrays everything that we know about reality. So when people say those sort of things, like I'm very sympathetic to objectivists who understand that like no, science needs to be rooted in a philosophy, that it needs to be rooted in a metaphysics. Like you cannot contradict your metaphysics through science. It needs to be rooted in that, and you need to basically go off that for science. However, you can't create a metaphysics that's so I guess overbearing that it basically makes it so that things that we directly observe and know are true are like it can't contradict that. It can't contradict things that we know in reality are true. Like my calculus teacher actually talked about something like this, and he was talking about like how David Hume like proved, or wait, no, it wasn't Hume, it was Hegel. Hegel proved that, like he said, he deductively proved that there can only be seven bodies of, or seven planets in a solar system, 7 planets rotating a sun, and then science came around and disproved that, and like you can, or science said that no, there's 9 or I guess 8 planets rotating around our sun, like that's, and Hegel's like, no, that's not possible, like you can't contradict the no, you can't create a metaphysics that make that debunk science. Like there's certain things that are in the realm of science and certain things that are in the realm of metaphysics. And I think Ayn Rand intentionally left her metaphysics small so that you can basically come to scientific discoveries off of that, so that it's not contradicting science. She set it as a basis of science and made it so that it never actually goes into the realm of science. She made it intentionally very small and just gives you like a foundation that you can build science off of, rather than doing her own science on her own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one definition from ITOE that is appropriate to mention. Mathematics is a science of method, the science of measurement, of establishing quantitative relationships, a cognitive method that enables man to perform an unlimited series of integrations. Mathematics indicates the pattern of the cognitive role of concepts and the psycho-epistemological need they fulfill. So that's the definition of mathematics. And if you were to take the word mathematics out and go talk to a bunch of random people on the street, I think that they could look at that definition and say, like, yeah, that's what I think science is. Like, you go out and you just measure what's out there. And like, so as a scientist, I see that and I'm like, oh, that's great. That's like a great definition. And so, then it's just a matter of like going and measuring what's out there. And, of course, we need to have the tools to be able to measure it. And so, like, at this point, what is dark matter? I don't know, but maybe we'll develop some tools that'll be able to measure that. And at this point, we know there's like gravitational effects, and so we think there's something there, but there's only so much we know about it. But like,
well, we know it's a thing with identity that behaves according to its nature, and then from there we do science on it.
So
that's what metaphysics says.
With a definition like that, it's like, why are there not more scientists that are objectivists? And part of me wonders if like the way people approach quantum mechanics just turns them off. But I'm not a physicist, I'm a chemist, so that was an immediate turn off to me.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think I've been wanting to talk to Existence University about a lot of this stuff for a while now, because I want to, I don't know. I don't know if I would be the best person to like formulate a good argument against it, because I'm very, very sympathetic to the idea that quantum mechanics is true and basically corresponds perfectly with objectivism, which, I mean, basically, if you can't tell by what I've been saying so far, like, I'm very sympathetic to the idea of quantum mechanics like being true. And yeah, I don't think that objectivism can debunk science like that. I don't like it when people act like it can. That seems so backwards. And
well, that would be an example of evasion. I think if you're going out there and you're trying to measure stuff, you're doing an experiment, you set up the appropriate controls to make sure that you're not deceiving yourself, then you can appropriately measure what it is that you're trying to measure. And, in a lot of the DDV shows, Rucka likes to crap on the social sciences, and I'm willing to pile on as well. There you're measuring how people interact, but like, really, you want to know the ideas that they're thinking to see how they behave. And so just as an idea, what if you were to do the exact same, behavioral survey, but there's just one extra box at the bottom where it's like, what is your philosophy? And, objectivist, Christian, altruist, utilitarian, whatever you want to put on there.
Yeah, like, I mean, they would probably have to do it where they like ask them questions about like what they believe, because if you just ask like, what's your philosophy? Like, a lot of people, like, politically, a lot of people are registered as Republicans, but they believe in like Medicare for all and stuff like that. So like, you'd probably have to go through and ask them questions. But yeah, I mean, the issue with social sciences, I think Rand says this a lot in ITOE, is they like they study man without ever defining what man is.
Well, maybe that's what they're trying to identify, but they're doing it really poorly.
Oh yeah.
But if you're doing science well is tough, because you, even while you're doing it, you realize that there might be some factors that you ought to be considering, but maybe you didn't on the first initial pass. And there is pressure to constantly come out with like new and flashy results. And so there are people who evade reality and publish things that is not true, or that they haven't fully vetted. And just a couple of things in the news relatively recently is Professor Lieber, the chemistry dean at Harvard, was arrested because he was taking grant money from U.S. sources, but also from Chinese sources, and those are supposed to be incompatible. If you're taking one of them, that disqualifies you on the other. And so he was collecting extra millions of dollars, and so that's scientific fraud in some sense.
Yeah, there's a it's crazy that there's a lot of corruption in science, like, and there's a lot of yeah, it's just that whole thing of like people want to get stuff out there. They want to prove these extraordinary claims. They want to show that these things are extraordinary, and like all the paper that proves this like crazy thing that nobody would expect, that always gets published. But the thing that like just proves what everybody expects, that never gets published. And when you have like, there's a degree of uncertainty in a lot of scientific study, because like with the whole like what's the word z-score of it or whatever, like there's that certain probability of, there's a certain like, it's the probability that it's in that, shoot, I haven't taken stats in a while, but I remember this from my
confidence interval or
yeah, confidence interval, that sort of stuff. And like at the very end, there's like, if it's like if there's a less than 5% chance of this happening, if the null hypothesis is true, then we accept it basically. And I mean, that means there's still that 5% chance that the null hypothesis is true, and that means that if there's like 100 journals that post this sort of thing, then 5 of them are going to be wrong.
Yeah, no. In talking about the health study, one of the things I mentioned to my partner was that is published in the Lancet journal, and that's the same journal that published the Andrew Wakefield vaccine's autism connection. So even the preeminent, recognized best sources in the field still can sometimes have issues. And so if you look at like retraction rates at like the journal Science or the journal Nature, those are higher than you would think they would be otherwise. And they are vetted through the peer review process when they go through, but still, if the researcher is hiding something, then you might not catch that in the peer review. And sometimes, as is the case with Francis Arnold, they were doing follow-up studies, chemistry Nobel Prize winner for like protein-directed evolution. This year came out and intentionally retracted one of her own studies, saying that they were trying to replicate it themselves and they couldn't. They found some kind of inconsistency, so they just brought it down and just said, we know that it's not real. We haven't figured out what's going wrong yet, but just letting you know that it's not true. So that's how people ought to operate.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff with like scientific studies, like you can change up assumptions and it completely changes the result. It's like I was doing this actuarial science case study where we were like, basically the whole goal of it was take all this data in and then basically recommend a percentage to like raise rates or percentage to lower rates. And there was so much complicated stuff. I didn't understand all of it because I'm just a freshman, and I was like just going into this and doing it with like a bunch of seniors and like stuff like that who had an idea of what they were doing. But based on the assumptions people used, all the same statistics, just based on the assumption. There were some people that had like increase your rates by 50%. Other people decrease them by like 40. And it's like just the assumptions you can use can skew data so much and change things so much. So if you use unrealistic assumptions, it can appear fine. Your data can appear fine, but it's just like you'll get to the wrong conclusion.
I only know of one actuarial joke, so you'll need to tell me how accurate this is. But the question is, how many points does it take to define a line? Okay. For a normal person, it's 3 or more. You do some kind of best fit line. For a mathematician, technically it takes 2. and for an actuary, only one. And then they just draw the line they want. So I don't know how true that is. I'm sure there's a lot more math going on behind.
Yeah, that might make sense. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you approach the work that you're doing, if you have the proper fundamentals, you will eventually be able to get wherever you're going. And in graduate school, I had to TA organic chemistry, and I think I could sit down in any of those tests in enough time, build from the ground up what the answer is, just starting with like number of protons, number of electrons. Then I fit it into the electron orbitals. You come across how many are in the valence shell, and you extrapolate to trends in electronegativity. Where are the electrons going to go? How are they going to interact with each other? And then as you add more pieces and more pieces, then you get to more complex reactions, and eventually you get to whatever the problem's asking about. But for organic chemistry tests, that pre-med students are taking, they're going to just like remember stuff via flashcards. And so if they're only like remembering, well, A plus B goes to C, without understanding why that combination works under certain conditions, when the professors try to get tricky and incorporate, opposite premise or something, they might just say like, oh, well, C, when actually it's like opposite of C.
That's a big issue with our education system in general, though. Like, we're trained from a very young age just to memorize these specific perceptual things. Memorize that this word goes with this word, and then, or this, if you see a question that looks like this, then you use this method, without ever learning why, without ever teaching ourselves why and understanding why, and going down to like fundamental levels. And it makes school so much harder than it has to be, like, because you have to memorize all these specific little things, when like someone who can think conceptually can. Well, I remember on my most recent calc exam, like I had a problem where I had to like figure out the volume of a 3D parallelogram. What's the name for that? I don't remember. But I had to figure out. Whatever. I had to figure out the volume of that when given three vectors, and I was like, I don't remember the formula, and then I basically just drew it out and like proved the formula, created the formula on the fly at the end of my test, and got it right. So power of thinking conceptually. You can pass your calc exams without knowing any of the material. Just kidding. Don't.
Well, if you understand the basic levels enough, you can just derive everything up from there. So, but it takes longer. And so like applying this to my next appearance on the DDV show, or his conversation with Danny, like if presented with a new situation, then like I can think about, well, what do I know about objectivism? How does it relate to those basic concepts? Which of them are applicable in the situation? How do I address it? And the conversation with Danny, it seemed like Danny made it sound as if they accepted a lot of the same premises and was just trying to explore the edges of like where the philosophy like might break down. But in reality, what he thought was an edge was not actually there because of his understanding of other concepts. And Diego did not, I guess, not always make that point, I guess, as articulately as I can backseat philosophizing make it. But like to point out and say like, you think that there is this issue here, but it's not actually there because of other reasons that like you're adding things onto a concept that's not there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really tough to argue with libertarians because they, like, on the surface level, we appear similar because like they believe in rights, they believe in capitalism, they believe in those sort of things. The issue is when you get down to actual philosophy, libertarians are completely on the opposite side of the spectrum of objectivists. Like they're subjectivists, they're utilitarians, they're pragmatists. Like that's how they justify freedom. They don't have the based on selfishness, based on reason. They don't have that approach to deriving capitalism, to deriving rights. So it leads them to being subjectivist, basically, from an ethical perspective, and it like obviously leads them to anarchism when they're most consistent. That's like the most consistent extreme of the libertarian philosophy is anarchism. The most consistent extreme of the objectivist philosophy is objectivism, capitalism, because of where we are philosophically. Like libertarians are the opposite of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the 2 points I want to make is that, I came through the libertarian camp and I was trying to understand what that philosophy, what that was, but there are as many ideas on what libertarianism is as there are libertarians. Mm-hmm. And then in one of the points that Danny was trying to make with Diego was that, well, if the government is some kind of sole arbiter of retributive force, what if you and another person agree to have a contract so that there's a third person arbiter? And a point that wasn't made was that, in the objectivist conception, like, you are free to make whatever contracts you want with that other person, provided they don't, break anybody else's rights. Mm-hmm. And because the objectivist philosophy is so minimalist in terms of what the conceptions are, it's possible to have those kind of agreements. Like when you sign up for different services online, you don't read all of the text, you just scroll to the bottom and hit I agree, but you're usually agreeing to have certain people be arbiters if you come into a dispute with the provider. So, if you need, objectivism is like a whole philosophy that covers everything. It's a gigantic sandbox and everybody's playing in it, but some like Danny is looking for what are the edges of the sandbox without realizing that the sandbox is actually existence, and it goes on until whatever's not existence anymore. Yeah. That's not the best analogy.
Not existence. There's no such thing as not existence, and there's no boundary either. That's an interesting thing we could get into, but that's. Yeah. Oh, now let's turn off. Turn on. There we go. That happens all the time.
He's alive again. He's now conscious.
I don't get why that happens. I think there's I must just be completely motionless in this room, and the lights just shut off on me.
Well, you can turn the lights off. We'll continue to save the environment, Garrett.
Fuck the environment. My thing back home used to always be people would do the straw thing, or people would be like, oh, I don't want a straw. I'll be like, give me 2 straws. Fuck the turtles. That was just my thing back home, because it'd be funny to see how people react to that. Oh man.
Yeah. So for my first appearance on the DDV show, I had 3 different topics that I was comfortable talking about going in. One of them was free will versus determinism, which we got to on the back half. None of them were Soleimani and foreign policy. So if you watch that video, I'm just sitting in the back. I'm just like, okay. Mm-hmm. No, oh, what? Objectivism isn't consistent with Islam? Okay, yeah. So I didn't say too much on that part. And then we almost got into the second topic I wanted to cover, which basically would have been takedowns of prominent political commentary. People who say they are very rational, but then make contradictory statements. And then
what do you mean
third topic, people who use the word capitalism in an inappropriate manner. They have the wrong.
That's what they got into on the show.
No, that's I had 8 videos prepared, and of course we didn't get through any of them.
Yeah.
But yeah. So those types of commentary, it's easy to do. It's easy to point to other people and just say, oh look, it's wrong because of this reason. But the objectivism should focus a lot more on the positive aspects, on building yourself up, doing things right yourself and showing that to everybody else.
Yeah.
And just living your own life in a positive way. And so sure, I'd go on, I'd enjoy doing more takedowns of people, and I still have all those videos logged. Mm-hmm. So but is that useful? It's entertainment for the time, but
takedown. Yeah, I noticed with takedowns of people, those become my most popular videos. Those are the ones that everybody loves to watch. But what most of my videos are is about like, go for a run, go run. That was my video today. Or like, I don't know, I have so many fucking videos, I can't even think of one now. Or like, I don't know, like the problem with religion psychologically, how it affects you psychologically. Like, it's all, for me, the main goal is about like helping people like live the best life possible, or telling people like find your values, pursue your own values, pursue your own life. And I made a video about why politics doesn't matter recently, and that made a few people mad because like there's an extent to which politics matters, there's an extent to which it affects our lives, but what is primary is you should look out for your own life. If you're going to, a lot of people go into like these Discord servers or go on Reddit and just shit post about politics all day and just go get in these long online discussions about politics constantly, and they're not living their lives. These are neckbeards who sit in their mother's basement, fucking beating their meat and playing Xbox all day while typing on their computer on the side, arguing with somebody about like I don't fucking know, like, oh, is Bloomberg destroying the country because of, I don't give a fuck, who cares? But it's yeah, it's just like such an uninspiring life, and these people place politics over their own lives, and it's so bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as part of my New Year's resolutions, I did an evaluation of all of the different like media sources that I follow, and I at the time subscribed to like 48 different podcasts, and I have 60 different YouTube subscriptions, and I somehow managed to stay on top of a lot of those. But like I was thinking about like how much time do I dedicate to this resource, and how much value am I getting from it, and like the top 3 sources of like podcasts are a conservative political talk show, a progressive political talk show, and then Iran, because he uploads all of his past talks for the last decade. So, and then I realized, and also one thing that I think Americanitis said at one point was just like, if you've heard one Iran talk, you've heard all of the
yeah.
So when that pops up in my feed, I check the date and see like, is this something new that he gave, or is this something from like 5 years ago? And if it's the latter, then like, okay, I don't need to listen to that.
Oh yeah, with the Iran talks, I have not been keeping up with anything on YouTube lately, but when I was paying attention, I would basically just cut out all the lectures, cut out all the lectures, cut out all that stuff, cut out most of the interviews too, because he'd go through and just explain the basics of Objectivism. But like his daily thing where he'd talk about the news or talk about a certain topic, that's what I would watch, like, because that's where you learn the most from. That's where you get the most value out of, because I get why he does the lectures. I get why he does that stuff, because like it's good for someone who has never heard of Objectivism before to hear that pre-planned talk, and that's a really good talk for new Objectivists. Like I remember I gained a lot of value from that right away. But once you hear it, like as Americanitis said, or Dan said it, like once you hear one of them, you've heard all of them, because they're basically the same thing. Like I don't know how many times I've heard the Microsoft Bill Gates talking point.
Yes, I've used that myself.
Oh yeah, I've definitely used it too.
So I guess I wish that he had like an annotated version where he like links back to the studies that show that Swedish Americans living in the U.S. are happier than Swedes living in Sweden. It's like, I want to tell people like that, and usually it's just like, oh, we'll prove it. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm making a positive claim. The onus is on me to be able to support that, and I have to imagine that this knowledge exists somewhere, and maybe I just haven't found the ARI repository or the white paper or whatever book that it's in. But like having that available, so I can just be like, oh, you want a reference? There you go.
Yeah. With my immigration debate, I actually had all the sources that I got. Most of them actually were from the debate Destiny did with Nick Fuentes, because he had like a list of sources in his comments. I was like, this is what I need. This is what I need from more people. Like I trust that Yaron's telling the truth here, because I mean, like everything that I've looked up that he said, everything that I looked up has been true. So, and Kirk has said the same thing. So I'm pretty sure everything he's saying is true. But I would like to see like a whole Word document where he just has all the sources for every like claim that he's making.
Yeah, like I mean, there's usually 2 types of claims that are being made. and one of them is like a philosophical claim,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other one is some kind of like numerical trends claim.
Yeah.
And for the latter, yes, it'd be nice to have that data.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you don't have that data, like the philosophical claim still can stand on its own. And I think I know enough about the philosophy to be able to evaluate, support the reasons for that.
No, the like the philosophical claim is the primary, but like the factual claim, that's just like supporting it, helping you integrate it better, helping you better understand the philosophical claim. So it helps. Yeah, it'll help you better explain it to people who want to get into arguments about politics, which is basically everyone.
Yeah, and I've realized that like the libertarian like news sources that I follow, those are great places where I can find the economic arguments.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually they're arguing for like free markets and why you should do things in this way because it just allows for more flourishing and more prosperity. Even though I can recognize that some of the philosophy is not complete. So when they make those types of arguments, I'm like, okay, I know how to refute that. But to see these numbers and these trends, like it's nice. That's another resource that I have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about? Anything else?
Yeah, I had some short thoughts on why so many people are citing Rucka Ali as their source into objectivism. And now that I am in and aware of the sphere of objectivist content creation, there's a lot of it. Yeah. But it is self-referential. And so like Yaron does talks to like different groups. He goes to a lot of like libertarian, free market, capitalistic type events and speaks there. But like Rucka Ali, through his music, he's going outside of that sphere. He's meeting and influencing other people who have never heard about the philosophy before. They learn about it. They see him. They see his confidence. If they enjoy his music, then that's an entry route that pulls them in. They want to learn more about it. Mm-hmm. So if your goal is to better yourself, great. You can become better, and then when people interact with you, they'll see how the self-confidence that you have. Then at that point, you can non-annoyingly tell them about the philosophy. But if your goal is to go out there and spread these ideas, I guess you can support ARA because that's what they do full time. But you also to have new people learn about it, you have to go where the people that haven't heard about it are. Yep. And that's one of the things that Rucka is doing a lot more than other objectivists.
Yeah, for sure. I remember when that Rubin episode came up and it was Rucka Ali, I was like, what the fuck? I've heard this dude sing about Hitler coming back and apologizing, I actually used to be the dude who would like when my friends would give me the aux sometimes, and I just click a song and they'd be like, oh, Shawn Mendes, nice, and then it's like, I don't like the Jews. I'd be like, what the fuck? And then but oh shit, demonetized. Imagine if I was making money on my channel, but whatever. Yeah, no, where was I? So I was like, what the hell is this dude doing on the Rubin report? So then I watched the video, and like the thing with that video is Rucka had like a certainty and a passion behind what he's saying, which is one quality that Rucka has really strongly. Like just listening to him talk about on the Mythicist podcast, he's just telling it like it is, and he has a certainty and a like passion about it. And he's also like diagnosing the state of the culture very clearly, because like back then there was this big thing with like what he talked about in a lot of it was there was this big thing with like the SJWs, and he was basically the way that he was describing them and calling them like disaffected leftists, and who are just going to end up going to the next philosophy, which is going to be nationalism. Like we were seeing that live with the whole Trump phenomenon, and then he was presenting this new alternative of objectivism, and it seemed to be exactly what I needed at the time, because I was like being disaffected from religion at the time. Like I was slowly moving away from that, and I didn't want to fall into like this nihilism where the next philosophy would come and grab me, this irrational philosophy. And the way he presented objectivism was like, this is the answer. This is clearly the answer. And I think he came around at the right time to basically introduce people to objectivism and bring in a lot of people. And just the fact that he's this like super popular content creator that people have heard of makes it so that when you people, there's intrigue with looking at that Rubin episode, because like it's Rucka Rucka Ali, the dude who sings What Does the Black Say, and all these songs. Like, what is he doing on there? And then he can just get to all sorts of new people.
Yeah, the sense of life is one of the very effective aspects of it. Because if you achieve success, a lot of successful people write books and they're like, here's how I thought about things, and people read these assuming like, oh, if I can think like Bill Gates, then I'll get rich like Bill Gates. And it's like, well, if they, those rich people don't have the proper ideas. Like if you read a Steve Jobs memoir, some of the points are good, and his approach to certain aspects of science, like maybe cut his life short. But if they can imbue a positive sense of life, that's what objectivism has to offer. You can live the best life you can live, and here's a very simple way that you can get there. Like that's, I think, what a lot of people see on that. Because that his episode was during a week when David Rubin was interviewing 5 different YouTubers, like prominent YouTubers, and I don't remember who those other 4 are.
Oh yeah, of course not. Rucka was the standout guy in that, and I think around that time, like I was not very interested in Rubin anymore. I was not interested in a lot of like the anti-SJW crowd, or like the Steven Crowders, or the conservative YouTube. I was not interested in that anymore. Like I started falling away from that. I don't remember what I was watching at the time though. I think I actually started watching a little bit of Uran because I knew what objectivism was before I watched Rucka, but I don't know. I just thought Uran, he's good at arguing for capitalism. He has a lot of good things to say on capitalism. I was basically just a libertarian type. I was going to be an ANCAP probably someday, but then Rucka swooped in and saved me from my nihilistic urges.
Yeah, no, when I evaluated a lot of my like YouTube sources, a lot of them do takedown style stuff, and it's easy to point out things that are wrong with other people's philosophy. Yep. But then you need to have a full set of ideas that you can then put in that place. So like, if actual Steven Crowder has a set of ideas that are not self-consistent, like then you can see him taking other people down, but then you can look at him and take down some of his stuff.
Because what Crowder replaced it with is just basic bitch conservatism, religious, but like not religious involved in politics. Well, just I believe in religion on the side, and that's where I justify rights from. And altruism, I mean, capitalism is forced altruism, and it's just this like basic bitch nothing conservatism that it's just gonna get pulled somewhere eventually. And the libertarians aren't gonna pull conservatism towards them because what do they have? Subjectivism and a politics based on nothing. So what happens is they're going to get pulled by the nationalists. The nationalists have religion. They have a full like tradition of history of like the Catholic Church, and Nazi Germany is like an example of like someone who took the nationalist ideas seriously, and like those ideas are like a self-consistent philosophy. They're a strong, self-certain philosophy, and these groypers have standards. They have their own standards, and I think one day those people are going to win. I really do.
Yeah, politics is not in a good place, and it actually doesn't matter what I do because I'm in not one of the swing states. So, regardless of how I vote in this primary, it does not matter.
Yeah.
So I'd like to slow the descent into wherever we're going. But,
I mean, hopefully we can turn it around. I don't know. I think this is one reason you shouldn't focus too much on politics, because we have a few years left before, who knows how long it'll be, but like just vote for who you can, advocate for the right ideas advocate for the right philosophy primarily, because that's what's going to change first. When people accept selfishness as a virtue and accept reason as an absolute, we're not going to have this dichotomy between socialism and nationalism that dominates our culture. That's inconceivable. It's going to be like, what's the right way to be selfish or something like that? I don't know. Like that's not, we're not going to have these same problems. So if we can advocate for the right ethical system first, we'll be fine. But
yeah, as a patron, I had submitted questions to Charles too, and one of them I was asking about how we could get politics back on track, and he took the question incredibly literally. And while there was the potential for him to expand on, like, here's like an actual roadmap for how we can, fix some of the issues, he just said, he took it from the point of like, well, here now, and we want to go over there, and it's going to be impossible to just jump directly there. So whatever. But like, if like, does ARA have like a roadmap for like, if we could get, one or two major things achieved politically, what would those be? What are the first targets to start unwinding? And once we show successes in those areas, then people realize benefit of the philosophy, and it expands into other areas.
Yeah. I think the main goal of ARI at the moment is basically just to get into the universities, get people into the universities, get people to understand, like, get a philosophy degree for one, and eventually like get professors in the universities, which I guess it works to an extent, but I don't know. One thing that's changing is that's not like, the university isn't the arbiter of information anymore. It's the internet. That's where you learn your philosophy. That's where you discover the principles that are going to guide your life. It's not from the university. Now, the university still has its effects. It still has, like, people go to college and get indoctrinated with whatever ideas get put on them. But like, you can just go to class and know, or if you can learn everything on the internet and learn all the things that you need to know. You can entirely get your philosophy from the internet and go to class and hear the stuff that they're spewing and just basically throw it away and say, no, this is bullshit. Like, I know the right way of thinking about these things. So I think, I don't know, there's a lot that can be done in the university, and I think ARI is good with that. I think that's their ultimate goal, and I think I don't know how well they're doing, because I don't know much about their success with that. But I think the things that Rucka's doing, things that Diego's doing, things that Charles was doing, things that I guess we're doing about uploading this video, like, these are what's gonna change the culture, I think.
Yeah, no, I think these types of resources that the people you're listing just put out are appealing to a different demographic than what ARA is targeting. So, the more people that are out there that are doing stuff, the more people we can reach. And, just as a message from a non-person to anybody out there, if you want to get on the DDV show, the barrier to entry is much lower than you think it is. Just get a microphone and start uploading videos of yourself. And, as for the number, or for the emphasis that Objectivism puts on production, there are surprisingly few people that are out there actually like producing something. Yeah. So there's like a lot of lurking happening, and maybe there's discussions happening on Discord, and sure there's our text record of that, but like creating videos, putting it out there, having people watch it, trying to get the ideas to spread. It's not that high of a barrier. Like, yeah, okay, there's going to be gripers in the comments, but like, you deal with that. You learn not to care too much, and you try to continually produce the best content that you can.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, you can get on basically. Yeah, like, you can get on the DDV show really easily. Like, you've gotten on it and you don't have any videos. Puya's got on it. He doesn't have any videos. I think the new intellectual, who I've never actually had a conversation with, but I think I've interacted with him in like the comment section before, but I think he was on it the other week. Brian Bonar got on it the other week. Like, all you got to do is just go on and ask if you can get on the DDV show, and just message Diego and he'll let you on most of the time. And hey, same thing.
That's how I got on there, and that's how I got on here.
Yeah, same thing with my YouTube channel. Like, I want to do these type of discussions. I want to get these things uploaded. So that's just ask me if you ask me to be on the channel, and I'll find time in my week and we'll get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine people are having these types of conversations, and so just it's already happening. You know, record yourself, put out an audio podcast. You know, maybe record video. Like, you know, if you are journaling every day, you now have a record, and you can go back and look at them and see how you changed over time. Or if you're doing daily logs, you can put that together in a book, like Frog Machine did. You know, like, you don't necessarily know exactly where you will end up, but you know, by creating something, you know, you now have a basis to continue building off of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and the thing with the DDV show, I had like very few subscribers at the time. I was a nobody. I don't think I was in all the Objectivist Discords, but nobody knew who the hell I was because I never talked to them. So then I just messaged Diego one day and like said, hey, I heard you guys are doing a podcast, because this was like right after his video with Rucka and Kirk, where Diego was like, hey, we should start a podcast and invite guests on and stuff. And then they're like, yeah, if you want to set that up, you can do it. And then I immediately went and messaged him like, oh shit, I have a channel. Hey, you should invite me on. I could come on and talk. I was like expecting to get shut down because like I'm a no-name objectivist that nobody has any idea about. But then I think I've been on it like 4 times now, and apparently I'm a host now. So
moving up in the world, yeah. You know, the water's not too hot. Just come in and join us.
Yeah. For sure.
On that note, like below, favorite, share, spread it to your friends. Let's get this to 100 million views, and then I'll be on next time.
Yeah.
So this has been your host, Fake Crowder. Thank you for joining us.
Are we ending it?
We can keep going.
I was surprised.
Did you have other topics?
Wait, I don't know. I felt like that was abrupt.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess I don't know if I have any other topics.
If we don't, we just cut it beforehand, and it looks like we had everything planned.
Nah, it's all good. We're keeping this. We're keeping it. I felt like there was one thing that I wanted to say, but I forgot what it was now. Whatever. It's all good.
That'll be the topic for tomorrow's vlog. Tune in when it airs at 3:30 Central Time.
Yeah, actually the interesting thing with the DDV show, I guess, is I just kept like nagging him to get on the podcast. I feel like I had no shame. I was just like, hey, could I come on this week? Hey, could I come on this week? I basically asked him every week, and then he'd say, no, not this week. We have somebody. No, not this week. We have somebody. And then eventually he's like, yeah, come on the podcast. And then I was like, oh, all right, let's come on again. Let's come on. And I've been on there a bunch of times. So the key here is have no shame and annoy the shit out of Diego. Send him 20 messages tonight. Message Diego on Twitter and Discord. Send him 20 messages asking him to be on the DDV show, and he will let you on.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you say nag or neg? Because I don't. You on the most recent video, you were trying to reference that which Frog Machine had talked about beforehand, and you couldn't remember what that word was. And I was screaming at the screen, "It's neg! It's neg! You should know this!" But yeah, so neg Diego. Maybe don't neg him. That'll ruin your own self-esteem.
Oh wait, sorry. When I pronounce the sound ag, I say it like egg. So like bag, magazine, agriculture. It's because I'm from South Dakota, and like the South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, we talk like Canadians basically. So we say things like bag, nag, gag. Or my friends always make fun of how I pronounce the homosexual slur F word, because I say it like faggot when they say like faggot or something like that.
And demonetized.
As if I was making any money on this video anyways. But whatever. But yeah, no, that's something my friends always make fun of me for. But so yeah, I can't pronounce the AG sound apparently. I just say it. There's no difference between like a bag, like a sack, and like begging for food. The same word.
Well, it would be great if everyone had a voice as rich as Dan's. But there are a lot of people
Yeah.
out there in the objectivist movement that speak with the tools that were given to them. So
So
regardless
this
of
is
how you sound, regardless of if Rucka can do an impersonation of you, put your stuff out there, and then maybe
yeah,
you'll get the opportunity for him to impersonate you in front of your face.
yeah. I think we discovered what my speech impediment is, because all objectivist speakers have to have a speech impediment, right? Like as Charles too is talking about. Why do all these fucking objectivist speakers talk with a speech impediment? Oh my god, so disrespectful. What a non-objectivist, what a non-objective person is Charles too.
Yeah, and that's a good example of potentially a good example of someone who has deep philosophical, technical knowledge,
Yeah.
but is not living the life going out and interacting.
And now that we talked about Charles and are going to get attacked for that in the comments, and we've talked about Diego, I've pissed off Diego by telling all the viewers to go attack him and neg him like crazy. Who else can we talk shit about?
Getsui, if you're watching this video, come on, we'll do a three-way. Garrett will be in the middle. He wants to be Dave Rubin, and then you and I will just come at each other.
Yeah. And also,
or actually, you should have a Rucka in there.
yeah.
You can say more
and
about
just to
piss
off Rucka, Getsui is the most honest person I've ever spoken to in my life, and Charles too is the greatest philosopher of our age. No, sorry, Rucka. Oh god, it's all good. And to piss off all the Charles too people, Rucka is the most objectivist of all time. And Charles too has no redeeming qualities. There we go. I think we got
Rucka's music is like Beethoven.
Yes, his music is Beethoven. His music is better than Beethoven. All right. And on that note, I think I got everything off my chest that I wanted to say today. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.